Now we've learned that they've been doing it for decades. And not only is it a multi-billion-dollar industry, the government has invested a lot of Americans' hard-earned tax dollars into it. They've been forced to spin it, and apparently it is now the only way we are going to save humanity. However, let's look at the risk. According to GAO, injecting a cloud with silver iodide increases precipitation anywhere from 0 to 20%. It could be even more, but the truth is that we really don't know for certain. The questions that are asked is, can you control the exact amount of precipitation that a cloud will produce if it is injected with silver iodide or another cloud seeding agent? Can you control where the precipitation is going to land with 100% certainty? Can you say that it will not cause or enhance flooding with 100% certainty? Is there any way to measure with absolute certainty the effectiveness of seeding a cloud? Do we know with 100% certainty how much rain a cloud would have produced if it had not been seeded? And lastly, did the American people ever get to have a say in any of this? The truth is that there's absolutely no way to measure the effectiveness of cloud seeding.
Think about the risks. If cloud seeding does trigger extra rainfall, can anyone guarantee that it won't cause flooding downstream? Can they control exactly where that rain will fall? The honest answer, no. We're playing with forces of nature that don't follow man-made boundaries. A cloud doesn't care about state lines, farm fields, or urban centers. When seeded, it may dump heavy rain in one place, leaving another in drought. Imagine one town celebrating rainfall while another battles flash floods, and all of it linked to a man-made intervention. And here's where it gets even more troubling. There is no reliable way to measure the effectiveness of cloud seeding in real time. Scientists can't just look at a storm and say, yes, that extra inch of rain came directly from our silver iodide. There's no control experiment, no way to rewind and see what would have happened if we left the clouds untouched. It's like trying to prove that you changed history without ever knowing what history would have been.
These companies that perform cloud seeding and other types of geoengineering projects have to fill out forms from NOAA, and they have to list what agents they're using. And there is a category that simply says other, and they don't have to even fill out what other means. And I think that's extremely concerning. But I'd like to talk a little bit more about solar geoengineering. It's completely different. More consequential approach to human manipulation of the planet's climate. One geoengineering company called Make Sunsets injects aerosol into the atmosphere to reflect sunlight back into space. I want to show you their frequently asked questions page on their website. Mr. Pilkey, it says here, it says, what are you doing? It says, we're using balloons to launch reflective clouds into the stratosphere. And then it says, why?
Now think about what that means. We're talking about chemicals being sprayed into clouds, the atmosphere being manipulated, and yet there is no obligation to tell the public what's really being used. Imagine going to a restaurant ordering food, and the waiter says, oh, we put in some ingredients and a few things under other, but don't worry about it. Would you eat that meal? Probably not. So why are we accepting it when it comes to the air we breathe and the rain that falls on our crops? This lack of regulation doesn't just open the door to negligence. It opens the door to abuse. If companies can keep their methods vague, how do we know they aren't experimenting with substances that could harm ecosystems, wildlife, or even human health? How do we hold them accountable if something goes wrong? The truth is, we can't. And that should alarm every single one of us.
It says, unless we reflect sunlight, tens of millions of people will die, and 20% of species may go extinct. We're using the most effective way to reflect sunlight that we found and can afford to deploy. Mr. Pilkey, is it true that tens of millions of people will die if they don't do this?
There's nothing you can find in the IPCC or other scientific literature to suggest that's a consequence. Sometimes those stark claims are made to try to scare people into other forms of action on climate change. So if you don't change energy policy, we're going to mess up the stratosphere. And that's how I interpret that.
Sounds like a major threat to make for their company to make money. They said, how long do Make Sunsets clouds stay in the sky? Depending on the altitude and latitude at which we release them, anywhere between 6 months and 3 years. They also say, is it legal? They say, yes, it falls under the Weather Modification Act. Then they have a question here, Mr. Marks, I would like you to stop doing this. And they say, and we would live a future with breathable air and no wet bulb events for generations to come. Convince us there's a more feasible way to buy us time to get there, and we'll stop. We'll happily debate anyone on this. Mr. Martz, they don't think that the rest of us have a say in this. How do you think? What do you think?
Let's dig into the risks. Injecting sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere might reflect sunlight, but sunlight isn't just heat, it's life. Crops need it to grow, ecosystems rely on it to function, and entire food chains could be disrupted if the balance shifts. Scientists warn that large-scale solar geoengineering could reduce agricultural yields, threatening food security at a global level. And if those particles drift down into the lower atmosphere, they can mix with water and create acid rain. Think about what that means. Poisoned soil, damaged forests, rivers, and lakes turned acidic, entire habitats put at risk. Do we really want to gamble with our food supply and ecosystems for a technology we don't fully understand? And here's another red flag. Make Sunsets admits that their reflective clouds could stay in the sky anywhere from 6 months to 3 years. That's not an experiment you can easily undo. Once those particles are up there, nature becomes the testing ground, and we become the test subjects. Doesn't that sound less like controlled science and more like rolling the dice with Earth's climate? Now let's talk about consent. Did anyone ask you if you were okay with this? Did governments put this to a vote? The answer is no. These are private companies deciding the future of the planet's atmosphere without the approval of the people who will live with the consequences. And when critics push back, their response is chilling. Convince us there's a better way and we'll stop. That's not accountability. That's arrogance.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think that the claim that the air is not going to be breathable is just patently ridiculous. Carbon dioxide, although it is a greenhouse gas, and yes, I do agree that some of the warming, at least, that we've seen in the last 100 years is probably due to CO2 emissions. There's no indication that the air is going to become unbreathable. It makes up 0.04% by dry air volume of Earth's atmosphere. And submariners in the Navy are subject to the concentrations exceeding 5,000 parts per million and are just fine.
Well, let me ask another question, Mr. Martz. It's sulfur, right, that is put into the air. Is there health consequences for people, especially like after volcanic eruptions? Is there health consequences to that type of injection into the atmosphere?
Well, sulfur dioxide, if it's injected into the stratosphere, obviously it blocks out solar radiation, and so that would potentially, if it's implemented on a large enough scale over a long period of time, it could reduce crop yields because obviously plants need sunlight to grow. They need water and CO2, just basic photosynthesis. And there's also concerns that if it gets into the troposphere, it could create acid rain, and that is called acid deposition into the soil. And that makes it hard for plants to obviously to grow, and that harms plant and animal life as well. Obviously,
Mr. Martz, I'm out of time. Thank you very much. I now recognize